Point Hook is a fascinating site, preserved and maintained by the American Battle Monument Commission, known as the ABMC, and remains much the same as when the 2nd Battalion, the Rangers, left it. A walk around the site sheds understanding on the tragedy that occurred here. The three objectives of the 225 Rangers who assaulted Pointe du Hoc during the early morning of D-Day was to destroy, first, the German communication and the battery of the 6-inch guns. Those were from World War I, 1917 GPF model. They were manned by the 716th Infantry Division. These guns, with a range of 10 miles, can easily fire at either on the U.S. sector beach, Omaha, 4 miles east, or Utah, 8 miles west. The 2nd Ranger Battalion disembarked at 4 a.m. from the steamship Amsterdam, about 10 miles offshore, and boarded 10 LCAs, landing craft assault, manufactured by the British, not to be confused with the LCVP, landing craft vehicle and personal law, known as Higgins boat, manufactured by the United States. Those LCA were manned by the British Navy. It sets off Pointe du Hoc. Captain Harold Duke Slider, LCA, filled with communications equipment, sent on his way. 3 miles journey, Lieutenant Colonel Earl Rotter realized that the remaining 9 LCAs are steering too far east towards Pointe de la Percée and corrected their course. The LCA coxswains turned towards the west, but the 2.5 knots easterly current slow their approach and contribute to their 40 minutes delay in arriving at Pointe du Hoc. They finally arrive on site at 7:10 instead of 6:30. Company D is initially ordered to scale the west cliff to attack guns position 4, 5, and 6, but the delay occasioned by the navigation's error caused Company D to change its plan and land on the east cliff alongside Company E and F. When they jump from their landing craft, some men fall into deep craters, their heads underwater. They then had to climb the wet, slippery cliff with muddy ropes and rope ladders. But concentrating on their mission as they are, they cannot be stopped, not even by the German. But worst is yet to come. Once top the cliff, leaping to and from shells and bomb craters, they found friends wounded or dying. Sergeant Robert Freeling is struggling with radio set saddles, and Captain Gilbert Bohr is in shock and bleeding badly. Along their way, they sometimes promise to send a medic, knowing that they probably won't have a chance to do so. Mission first. The craters caused by the shells from the big guns of the USS Arkansas and USS Texas are so big that they can contain 30 men or a 2-day coach. Today, some 73 years later, they're still big enough to accommodate those buses. The situation is very confusing. Men jump and down to escape enemy fire. Corporal Robert Carty, who dodges a bullet, fall on Private Webb's bayonets, impaling his thighs. If the first ranger task is to silence the communication, then the second mission is the guns, and the third mission is to block the main road to prevent German reinforcement from reaching Omaha Beach. After Company D realizes the 5 guns are missing, the men start on the third task. About 12 men from the original 50 managed to break through the German defense to the road junctions where a bullet hit Private Jack Convoy. It goes through both his cheeks and out. At 8 a.m., Sergeant Lommel and Kuhn, patrolling far ahead of the rest of the Rangers, found the 5 6-inch remaining guns. Looking at the dirt path, they were intrigued by 2 parallel deep track in the mud that are obviously made by heavy truck. Following the track, they come up onto the key sites and they look over the edge and see German soldiers, about 100 of them. So they were about 100 yards away, talking and putting their jackets on. They have to destroy the guns in a total silence. They could use ordinary fragmentation hand grenade and the muzzle brake, but that are too noisy, and the enemy would be alerted and attack them. It is very fortunate that I did not take that option, because it was learned later from the experience of all of that regular hand grenade and these guns would have no effect, not even scratch the paint. Luckily, they used those thermal grenade that they carry with them. They dropped one in each of the 2 nearest breach, making no more noise than when you open a can of Coke, like just a little Sergeant Lommel wrapped his rifle in his jacket and blind the guns by breaking their sights. They run back to the T-junction, pick another 3 thermalite grenades, return to the remaining 3 guns, and finish the job, right under the nose of the German gunners, who hear nothing. At 8:30, the demolition men from Company E blow up the German underground ammo bunker storage. The shock wave is so intense that it feels like an earthquake. Simultaneously, the German command post is under attack. Its position is impenetrable by the regular way because the seafront has a narrow opening for the rangefinder. That way is impossible to go through. On the land side, it takes a few steps to go on the level down to get into a small backyard. Today you can see the officers' mess and the back door that was heavily defended by machine guns, such as MG-42, with 1,200 rounds per minute. One of our men had the great idea to use the air pipe network. It comes from the top, put his flamethrower hose muzzle in the air admission and let the oxygen and the gas start saturating the inside air. When done, he ignited it and torched every single room inside the bunker. The 3 companies D, E, and F suffer 5 major attacks and have to hang on until a relief force composed of the 116th Infantry Regiment and Company A and B and C of the 2nd Ranger, who landed at Omaha Beach and Charlie subsector, plus the 741st Tank Battalion, are able to get through to the Pointe du Hoc by 12 on D-Day plus 2. When I say 12, I mean by midnight, and it was eventually a little later than that. On the 225th men who have landed, only 90 are still fit for battle. The rest are dead, wounded, or captured by the enemy. The 2nd Ranger Battalion received the Presidential Unit Citation. The wounded are awarded the Purple Heart. For their personal action, Sergeant Lommel received the Distinguished Service Cross and Sergeant Kuhn the Silver Star. The 5th Ranger, Task B. The 5th Ranger Infantry Battalion was activated on the 1st of September 1943 at Camp Forest, Tennessee. 34 officers and 563 enlisted men joined the battalion over the next 3 days. Major Alwyn H. Carter was the battalion commander and Captain Richard P. Sullivan the executive officer. After 4 months of strenuous training in the States, the battalion shipped out of the port of New York on 8 January 1944 aboard the HMS Mauritania, arriving in Liverpool, England on the 18th. On D-Day, their mission was Pointe du Raz de la Percée Radar Station. In 1941, the German installed on the cliff top a radar station to replace an old French Navy semaphore and lighthouse. Protected by a minefield and occupied by 2 units of Luftwaffe, 10 Fluggemälde Light Company, and Kriegsmarine, the station is still under construction in 1944. The site accommodates 3 radars, a Wurzburg VVR Fuse 65 to locate airplanes within a range of 45 miles, a Freya FUMG-80 to calculate the airplane's altitude, and a SeaTac with a range of 22 miles to locate ships. The 2 major campaigns were carried out on May 23rd with the RAF Mosquitoes and 30th, 1944, destroying the site. There were about 200 men, 2/3 from the Luftwaffe and 1/3 from the Kriegsmarine. They didn't have water, so a local I met many years ago was delivering them the water every morning. From what he said, they were pretty friendly. He also remembered that on May 23rd, they were collecting all the empty shells with the garden rakes and filling up wheelbarrows to sell the copper. When the Company C of the 5th Ranger landed at Pointe du Raz de la Percée, 3 miles east of Pointe du Hoc, they jumped out from their LCAs. Some men fall into deep craters, like at Pointe du Hoc again. They were head underwater, again, like Pointe du Hoc. The Rangers waded to the shoreline and started across the sand. Striving to reach the cover of the base of the cliff, machine gun, small arms fire, and mortar cut down some of the men as they attempt to run across the sand. Quickly, the men of Company C gathered at the base of the cliff and returned fire, hoping to pick off the Germans' riflemen in both positions. Captain Ralph Garrison, the company commander, ordered his Rangers to take up the rope. Lieutenant William P. Moody, along with Sergeant Julius Bletcher of Schwartz Creek, Virginia, and Otto Stevens, Newcastle, Indiana, scaled the cliff. Garrison recalled, "Those 3 men free-climbed about a 90-foot cliff that was partly an incline, and then straight up to the last 15 to 20 feet. We gave them covering fire from down below to keep the Germans of their attack. The last 10-15 feet were done by using their trench knife and secure a survey of Tuggle's rope from the barbed wire emplacement up there. So the rest of us could immediately move over into this position and climb up the cliff and get into the area around the fortified house." Lieutenant Moody emergently went topsides, killed the officer in charge of the Germans in the fortified house. We found the rest of the area honeycombed with dugout trench system, and immediately Lieutenant Moody and his men dispatched team to go and clear up this area. They were followed immediately by the 2nd Platoon with Lieutenant Solomon, and it was right here that we lost Lieutenant Moody. He was down by a German shot. That left Lieutenant Solomon to lead the force up to Groundley Cliff of Pointe de la Percée. Once atop, he ordered Rangers in group of 2 and 3 to capture the snake-like German trench in their dugout holes. With great cautions, the Rangers then surrendered the fortified house at the top of the cliff that was the nervous center of the Nazi base camp. This was put out of action by Sergeant Bletcher, who threw in a white phosphor grenade. Captain Garrison remembered when the Germans came out, they were sent to heaven by Sergeant Bletcher's gun. 9 men still in combat out of their 39 men. Task C, Omaha Beach, 6:30 a.m. The first wave to hit the beach consisted of Half Battalion Headquarters Company A, B, and E, landing on a strip of beach designed as Omaha Dog White Beach. Actually, the landing point for these Rangers was Dog Green, but Lieutenant Max Schneider, seeing the fabulous volumes of fire that covered Dog Green Beach, ordered the flotilla commander to touch down his craft east of the intended landing point. The first wave crossed the beach in good order with few casualties and halted temporarily in rear of the sea wall. The second wave, consisting of half of Battalion Headquarters Company C and D and one platoon of F Company, repeated the performance of the first wave and get reorganized. The over platoon of F Company has shipped too much water in its LCA and dropped out of formation, landing near the Saint Laurent beach exit at 9 a.m. after being transferred to an LCT. On signal of the battalion commander, the leading troops scrambled over the wall, blew gaps in the protective barbed wire, and, protected by the rising smoke, advanced to a point near the top of the hill, where the smoke had cleared and the hill was being swept by enemy automatic fire. First Lieutenant Francis W. Dawson of Company D led his platoon over the top and eliminated an enemy strong point, enabling the entire battalion to advance. His minefield became as prevalent as be on an honeycomb, and the battalion had to change into a column formation, wedding in and out of this formidable hidden defense. Company B, the leading unit, reached the Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer Vierville by the road at the point approximately 1 kilometer east of the Vierville-sur-Mer. In the course of this advance, many Germans, well concealed in weapon pits constructed in the hedgerows, were killed. The battalion advanced toward Vierville-sur-Mer, B Company leading and receiving heavy sniper and machine gun fire. E Company, attempting a penetration to the south, was stopped by intense machine gun fire. C Company fired an 81 millimeter mortar concentration, knocking out several of the enemy positions, but they were replaced so quickly that E Company was forced to abandon its southern attack. Several direct artillery hits on the rear of the battalion column caused many casualties. Most of the pressure was done onto Vierville. The Rangers battalions were reinforced by the 1st Battalion of the 116th Infantry Regiment and the 743rd Tank Battalion to set up a real perimeter of defense for the night. One platoon of Company A, which had been separated from the battalion during the crossing of the sea wall, proceeded through the town to the rallying point southwest of town, arriving with 12 prisoners and killing at least that many more Germans. The platoon of F Company, which landed near Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer, encountered heavy artillery and machine gun fire. Numerous patrols were sent on in an attempt to contact the battalion, but failed. This unit then attempted to move along the beach toward Vierville, but after advancing 600 yards, receiving artillery fire which inflicted 8 casualties, found themselves pinned down by a far superior force, and darkness found the platoon in this position. D-Day was over, and the Rangers took count. 100 POWs taken, 150 enemies killed, and approximately 60 Rangers killed or wounded. D-Day +1, June 7th. The plans is made for enlarging the beachhead and for relieving the 3 companies of the 2nd Ranger Battalion at Pointe du Hoc. They started out at 6 a.m. and force composed of C and D companies of our battalion, 80 men of the 2nd Ranger Battalion, 150 men of the 116th Infantry, and 6 tanks of the 744th Tank Battalion, advancing towards Pointe du Hoc. This force reached the outskirts of Saint-Pierre-du-Mont, where for 8 hours, without respite, they received a heavy artillery bombardment. At nightfall, they assembled in Saint-Pierre-du-Mont and under cover of darkness sent out a two-man patrol to contact the 2nd Ranger at Pointe du Hoc. Contact was made, and this two-man patrol laid a wire between the two forces, establishing contact. The two Rangers who accomplished this feat were Sergeant Moody and McKissick. In later operation, Moody was killed and Kissick was seriously wounded. Attacking southwest towards Vieilleville-sur-Mer, knocked out several machine gun nests and numerous snipers. One platoon, each of the Company A and F, supported by 4 tanks, attacked south from the town, eliminating snipers, machine gun nests, and several enemy combat patrol. This force killed approximately 25 enemies and captured 85 prisoners. During the night, enemy snipers infiltrated back into the town of E Company, had to fear then once more. A determined enemy counterattack on the town was also repulsed and smashed by E Company. A Company on Pointe du Hoc assisted the 2nd Ranger in repulsing 3 counterattacks. Those Germans were determined to throw the invading force back into the ocean, as determined as the Rangers were to stay, but we stayed. On platoon of F Company is an inland attack, destroyed 3 enemy pillboxes and several weapon emplacements, killing 8 Germans and capturing 36. Major Street of Admiral Hall's staff contacted this platoon and transported them in an LCVP to Pointe du Hoc, where they contacted the commanding officer of the 2nd Ranger. An 8-man patrol was sent to out-contact the 5th Ranger Battalion, this time successfully, till they got through the Saint-Pierre-du-Mont. By D-Day +1, the Rangers captured 150 prisoners of war, killed 80 enemies, however, not without losses. 40 more Rangers were added to the list of killed and wounded. At 6 a.m. on D+2, the Rangers prepared to move to Pointe du Hoc, Company B and E, with the mission of taking and holding the sluice gates of Grand-Camp-les-Bains, advanced through the low ground southeast of the road into Grand Camp. At 10, the town appears to be deserted, certainly a welcome relief after finding so much resistance.